For a third time, I just want to say I did not expect to be making a video about X-Men 97 tonight. I expected, going into episode 7, knowing we have this finale coming up, like 3-part finale. I knew we'd be getting some setup, but I didn't expect there'd be that much to talk about. I just thought it'd be a lot of, it's Storm and Cyclops and they're reuniting and stuff, and maybe putting together some pieces because Forge is here too. But little did I know, this was full, like, bunch of weird things. Most importantly, as I'm sure you could tell from the setup here a little differently, this guy was here. Strong guy. Guido Carosella made his first appearance this season outside of the picture, but also, and I believe this is true, I'm not positive about this is the first time this character's ever spoken on screen. I'm pretty sure he's only in one episode besides this one, and it was the one where X Factor and the X-Men fought. It was the Iceman episode, and he was there, but I don't think he spoke. He just like kind of fought people and went and grunted and stuff. So I've always wondered right before, I don't remember what I was working on, but I was working on something where I was like, I wonder if we've ever taken a shot at what he sounds like. Like, what is Strong Guy's voice? I think part of it was because I am working on a casting video for them. Part of me is like, what does this guy sound like? Because in my head, I've always been like, he's Italian. He's from Long Island. His name's Guido. And like, that was the thing before the Jersey Shore, Guido thing. Like, I did think he'd sound like that. It'd be a little bit more like, hey, it's me, Guido. What's going on, everybody? But we heard him speak in this episode, and it was not exactly what I was expecting. He had also an interesting line for Sunspot, bulk up, war's coming, which I think is funny. I think it's funny because he had a kind of I don't know, not like a chipper demeanor necessarily, but like a bulk up, war's coming. Like, just very, very chill, excited. I mean, he's going to be good at the war, I hope. I'm glad he didn't die. He could have totally died at this. Like, he could have been one of the characters who died off screen and be like, oh man, it's a bummer. That guy who was in one picture one time. But like, for me, it's like, no, now he's spoken. Now everyone must know who he is. He's a strong guy. He's a mutant. He has the power to absorb energy. He's like a lot of those guys. But like with him, he absorbs it and he has to redirect it. So like the Hulk can punch him and he can absorb that energy and punch the Hulk back. He can't hold on to it for too long, otherwise he'll explode. That's why he's all kind of big and weird. It's not because he, worked out a lot. It's because he got hit by a bus, I believe, and kind of got stretched out of shape. But Guido's great. I love his energy. I hope he somehow graduates to main team member. We've seen a fair amount of X Factor this season. I feel like there's maybe only one. Oh, no, that's not true. We haven't seen Havoc, we haven't seen Polaris, we haven't seen Wolfsbane. But we've gotten some Forge, gotten some Strong Guy now, got a little bit of Quicksilver today, which we'll talk about, and we got some Multiple Man in the dancing bit and a little bit in this episode. So, like, out of everything that happened this week, yes, obviously this is the thing that stood out to me as, like, good, they're making the show exclusively for me. I hope the rest of you guys can enjoy it. But like, I just didn't think that he would be speaking in this show. And this is Guido. This is the thing with X-Men fans. Everybody likes the same characters. Like, we all really like, Magneto and Kitty and Storm and Nightcrawler and all those. But everybody also has a couple of teams and then a couple of members within those teams that aren't very popular. They're like, oh man, I wish they could get their shot and be like promoted to X-Men. He's been one of those for a while, and it was a shame because in the first Krakoan vote he was in there and he didn't win. But like, I think it would have been would have been fun to see him on that team. By the way, if you're like, he's sitting weird, what's going on? My cat's on my lap. Mortimer is on my lap now, and if you don't believe me, here's proof. Look, there's a paw. He wants attention. He wants to give a bite. He's not going to give one. He can give one when Daddy is done with the video. All right, what else on my list? Look for the helpers. That was cute. I do think that line was somewhat undercut. Actually, it wasn't that line. It was the line that, oh God, what was her name? Amara, this one's gonna kill me. The woman that could turn into smoke. She's she was like one of Magneto's people for a while. I do think her name is Amaria Holt, maybe? I don't know. Her, when she was kind of talking about triage and like, oh, it's so terrible. I do think that line was somewhat undercut by the Frogman that was in the center of a frame. Now, I like seeing all the mutants, and I love, Blob and other, Mimic, I think, showed up in this episode. That was fun. But it is just like, man, sometimes the mutants, like, it's like, oh, that guy's a guy, but blue, and sometimes it's a big old Battletoad, and that's pretty wild. I like Beast getting at the MLK line. I like that's like the kind of, I do think that, we do that a lot as a society. is quote MLK, kind of talk about MLK, but we forget about how he would be viewed as more radical when you look at some of the other policies he advocated for, things he talked about, like, it's that one speech, and everybody loves to quote the speech, but when you really get down to it, there's a lot more, and it's a lot more complicated. So that was cool. I like that everyone is turning on the people, kind of. It's been the arc of the season. You had Cyclops doing it, you had Magneto turning back, and now look what happened to him, and then you had Beast and Rogue this episode. So really, it's like Nightcrawler. I don't know, not really Storm. Storm doesn't, maybe Jean, but yeah, you're pretty low on mutants with empathy left. And who could blame them? It's just kind of interesting. Oh, you know what else was interesting this week? Speaking of why this episode was for me, Sunspot Dad. We spent another bit of time with the DaCosta family. Saw Mom, had a very interesting version of the Bobby from X-Men 2, coming out to his parents scene, but this a more modern one of those, but also a more kind of complicated one. Which I think was great, and I really like that. But also still no Dad, and Dad exists, and Dad is a character in the comics who, I don't know, maybe he's up to something. I don't know. Or he's like a pawn of someone. I'm not convinced that he's going to be the bad guy here or something. Like, obviously we know who the bad guy is, and I don't think his dad is secretly Bastion or something. But I do think it's interesting that he was my pick for like who's secretly pulling the strings, and we are still... He's one of the only characters we haven't met yet. And I just think that's interesting. I did like that scene though. I thought that was a good scene, and I'd like to see something like that in the movies, like, because it does feel, it feels like what this whole thing's about. Speaking of things that this whole thing is about, I was chanting. So I do think sometimes as an X-Men fan, some of the scenes don't fully work the way they're supposed to. Like the scene where Scott is like upset, and he's talking to Jean, and they're looking for Madeline. And then they find a telepath, and he goes, Madeline, and then starts running over to her, and everybody's like, they found a telepath. And in my head, I'm like chanting like, Emma. And that's not in my head. I'm chanting out loud. I was chanting, Emma, Emma. And then they brought Emma Frost out, and I was like, yay. And then Scott was crying. I was like, why are you crying, Scott? This is great. And he's, oh, right. You thought it would be the other person. But it's like, damn. That is, I'm just glad we're going to get more Emma, and we're doing the Diamond form. Like, there's certain things that when the Genosha, Ease for Extinction storyline started, when they started doing things like that, you're wondering if they were just going to use that as a catalyst for this big moment, or if some of the other things that happened, the specifics from the fallout of the attack on Genosha, were also going to play out the way they did. And yeah, we're getting a new shot at Emma. I would love to see her join the team next season, or this season, frankly. Emma Frost is great. Also, another question. What is Morph? Is to say, like, what can they do? What is the Morph standard Morph power set? Because it's never one of the power sets that I was ever super curious about, especially because in like Exiles they could kind of do whatever. But especially in this show and like the fights they're having, I'm like, man, Morph, you got some sick powers. I think we can be maybe doing a little bit more interesting stuff with this. But just in general, I'm like, we gotta talk about your power use specifically, because up until now they've turned into like versions of people but a little different, right? So like Blob, big large guy that they could use as a big kind of trampoline, or Spiral, 6 arms, but still it's like you just turn into a 6-armed person, you have 6 arms now. They copied Colossus's power and like got large, and it wasn't clear whether they also turned into like the steel skin that Colossus has or not. And I guess the answer is they did, because it seems like Morph can copy physical superpowers also. Because I would say, like, technically, if that's what we're doing, if you're an X-Man and you do not have some sort of specific, like, connection to another dimension or something, like they probably can't copy Juggernaut, let's say, but like, not that Juggernaut's a mutant anyway, but like, if they were copying someone like Quicksilver and they were able to use Quicksilver's speed, I don't see what's stopping them from copying Gambit. Because what's the difference? Gambit also has different physiology that lets them, access kinetic energy and stuff. It's their mutant power, but it's in their DNA. It's in their body. It's not in like their soul or like something else, some other connection to a mystical energy or something. Like there's certain mutants that are kind of that. But I don't see why not. And this is just like, I'm splitting hairs here, and this is nitpicking. Not unlike my podcast, mostly nitpicking. I guess it was just when Morph turned into Quicksilver this week, I was like, well, what can't Morph do? Should Morph just turn into Galactus and eat this guy and we could be done? Because you seem to have lots of abilities. Remember when Morph was magic for a while? That was interesting. My other favorite Morph thing, Morph gets bodied, and then Wolverine's like, Morph, no! And I just think it's really funny that that is just what happens. Morph gets bodied, and then Wolverine's like, no, Morph, no! Every time. He's just there watching Morph get beat up left and right. Speaking of guys with deep voices, we got the Cable finally showed up. That was interesting. I do think his entrance felt very, I don't know if this is like a reference everybody gets, but like I think you should leave Scrooge sketch where the guy played by Sam Richardson comes in, he's like, Scrooge, we gotta get all the bonies, there's bonies from the future, they're invading. That's like kind of what Cable's energy was like today, and I liked it. I think it's fine. Cable's never been my favorite character, to be honest. Like, I enjoy some of the stories they're in, but I don't know. You know what it is? I've just never been a humongous fan of these stories that take place in an alternate future or something, because it never feels like it counts. And it always means when that character's coming up, then, oh, we're going to be able to time travel and do this. And like, now it's like, oh, is Remy dead? Oh, maybe he is, but maybe they can get him from another timeline or something. So, you know, I don't love that. But then the big thing this week, first he killed Guyrich with his big pink hands. And as someone who knew who this character was from watching it, I was like, man, that is a very unusual hand color in this show. If you don't know who this is, it's like, what's that guy's deal? He just got a bad sunburn. Then we see him just talking to Sinister and having a very, you know, modern villain, like, oh, you guys all did your plans and they all stunk and I'm doing them better than you kind of monologue. And we got the full reveal that it's Bastion. So there's three things about Bastion that I love. One, I just love that he's working above Mr. Sinister, and Sinister comes in with his pointy teeth and his Starscream voice talking about how you destroyed everything and our plans have been foiled. And Bastion's just like, nah, man, it's all good. Don't worry about it. That's pretty cool. I like this energy compared to Sinister's. I also think that I like the look of Bastion. I've never been a humongous fan of the comic character Bastion. I tried after this episode was over to explain really briefly what Bastion's deal was. And even though we knew he was going to be in this because of the picture from the Forge episode, I had not looked up like what's Bastion's history in a while. I don't know if they'll do the whole backstory or they'll kind of streamline this as well, but it's dumber than that. It's about as dumb as it can get. He's part Nimrod, the Sentinel from the future, who is like the best, most, you know, perfect Sentinel. And then it's that with a master mold, fell through the magic door, fused them into a guy who thought he was just a guy, thought his name was Sebastian, some guy, and then he turned out to be the super mega evil Sentinel Man. I'm gonna be honest, I've read like some Bastion stories. I'm not a humongous fan of this character, mostly because I think the Sentinels are cool, but I like the most basic version of the Sentinels, and I like Nimrod and all this stuff in between. It's like, you're the Prime Omega Sentinel. It's like, I don't care. Either you're the best one or you're an army of goons for me. That's just me. That's just me. I do think OZT, when that came up, Operation Zero Tolerance, that was on the screen. I had forgotten that was the name of that arc, and I was trying to figure out how OZT somehow was Orcus, but like, because that was what it seems like they were doing, is some sort of, you know, alliance of all the evil scientists getting together to stop mutant kind. And it's more complicated than that, but I do think this story makes sense, and it is very clear now, like, that is the path they're going on, is, you know, a Sentinel war against mutants, and I think like it's gonna be cool. I'm excited for it. And I think the thing that I like the most right now about Bastion, what is keeping me interested in this character, is that it's Theo James, one of my picks at least for Lex Luthor, and I still think he would have been good for that. Clearly now I'm like, oh yeah, he would have crushed it. But playing a straight up villain, because in the White Lotus he was like the jerky, weird, manipulative finance bro, and then in The Gentleman he's not a bad guy, but like it's like a mobster kind of story. So I liked seeing him in a full on evil role. I know he's been in the Castlevania show, and I'm not super familiar with that, but I think he's I think what they're having him do with Bastion is pretty entertaining. His weird little monologues and his music and his shaving Magneto and stuff like that. That's pretty funky. It's interesting how certain characters feel different, right? Like Mr. Sinister feels like a character from a 90s video game cabinet, like just like, X-Men, it's me, Sinister, come to get you. Whereas Bastion feels like a actor doing a performance in a play. It's like, hey, I got a thing and over there, and I'm gonna shave you and put heat on you. Like, It's got a very, and I think maybe that's part of it, is this character's supposed to feel more human and personal than any of these other Sentinels have so far. But he's also kind of delusional and weird, so that part is also fun. But I do like that they let Theo James do this, like give him this much style. I think it's very fun. I also like that they just made him super pink. I don't understand like what the design choice was there. Like if that's just how he's always looked. But it's a look. But yeah, you know what? I think the one thing that I really liked about this episode, so yeah, the revelation that Magneto's still alive, which we knew, but like this was not a getting all the forces back together kind of thing. Storm still hasn't met up with everybody. Magneto still hasn't met up with everybody. Professor X still has not met up with everybody. So I think it's cool that we still have some space for characters to have big dramatic entrances at the end of next week to save everybody. Because like it just feels like whatever's the next 3 episodes are just gonna be like falling down a waterfall, and then a little bit further there's another waterfall. Like it's just gonna be thing after thing after thing. And I do think, I don't know, I don't think we can't end with House of M. I don't know where this team is going to end, because it does feel like we're following the 2000s, like this 95 to 2000 story arc now, which is what Bastion was and Eve's for Extinction. I guess after that we could do like the Grant Morrison X-Men. I mean, we kind of do have we've got some of the team members for it, especially if Rogue goes rogue and maybe, you know, they're not as connected anymore. We've got an Emma, we've got a Beast, we've got a Scott, we've got a Jean, we've got Wolverine. It's not bad. It's not bad. I really hope Emma becomes a main player. And listen, man, like, I don't even know whoever's in charge of this show now, because you're all doing an incredible job. I think it's the best. Just let me write one X Factor investigation so set in this universe, like a one-off with this guy and Multiple Man. Just like, I'm not saying that because I want to write it so badly. I'm saying that because I want it to exist. You know, like I think it'd be fun in this universe to explore some of these other teams that do exist. Like I've been saying this whole time, I want more X-Men stuff directed at kids, sure. But also we keep looking at these guys over there and we go, ooh, that guy's interesting. And I'd love to spend a little bit more time with like X Factor, but obviously right now, like everything's way too important for that. And also speaking of X Factor, Val Cooper is still missing. So that's knock on wood, definitely Mystique or something. So we got 3 episodes left. I'm loving it. Between this and Deadpool this week, like my X-Men, you know, senses are tingling at a level that they have not been in a long time. I've got my Wolverine claws ready. I'm very excited, and I'm sure I'm going to be doing many videos. I probably won't do a video next week, but you never know. Maybe they'll just rope me in by being so amazing. Maybe they'll figure out some other character who I love even more than Strong Guy and have him speak. Maybe they'll give Strong Guy 2 lines, and then I'll have to talk about that. But yeah, I'm really digging this. I mean, it really is just the best, and I am, as an X-Men fan, I feel very blessed, very lucky that we're getting this year of 2 great, like a great X-Men show, and potentially, knock on wood, a very fun looking X-Men movie, and obviously lots of comics and other cool stuff like that. But yeah, it's been good. So one more thing before we go, and this is the first time I've done this on this channel. I have been, as Nando View Movies, my other channel, a part of this video's sponsor, Nebula, for a very long time. Since Nebula existed, I was there at the founding. We've constantly been like growing and changing this platform and adding lots of different creators and different shows. The app has changed a lot. We have this nice little thing now where you can look at like from the culture section. This is culture. Enjoy. I hope you're enjoying all this culture. Strong Guy, he's part of culture. And for a while, I've been putting Nando Cut videos onto Nebula. They even have their little channel. They tend to go up a little bit earlier than regular YouTube videos, although not more than like a couple hours. But on Nebula, you can watch all my videos ad free. You can watch my Nando View Movies videos nice and early. Those are great. And you can watch all kinds of other cool videos from lots of other creators you already like. I'm sure, you know, Patrick Willems, Captain Midnight, Hello Future Me, Big Joel, FD Signifier, H Bomber Guy. There's a ton of them. And we're working on all kinds of cool Nebula exclusive stuff. But basically, Nebula, it's our subscription streaming platform that we created, so we have control over it. We can decide, you know, what kind of content we want to put up. We don't have to worry about appealing to an algorithm or any other constraints like that. It's all just about what kind of videos we want to make. The years that it's existed, it's been very popular. But I always think it's funny because every so often people come to this channel, the Nando Cut, and I realize they don't even know the Nando View Movies, like my other channel with way more subscribers. It's been around forever. But like, if you've been watching videos there, you've seen me talking about Nebula forever. But if this is the first time you've seen me talk about it, then go check out Nebula. It's an incredible deal. A yearly subscription is around $5 a month, but if you use the code TheNandoCut at checkout, you can get Nebula for a little under $2.50 a month, so it's like about $30 a year. It is an incredible deal. There's so much great stuff on Nebula, but also if there's some other cool video where it's like, I don't know if that would work on YouTube, like I don't think it would play, but maybe that's the place for Nebula. But also we've got a lot of short films in the works. If I do ever make something like that, I have a feeling it'll end up on Nebula. So by supporting Nebula, you're not only supporting my channel, but you're basically saying like, hey, we like Nando and we want to see him make other cool stuff, so we should definitely do that. Like, that'll definitely help me justify getting some weird creative project made. But until then, all my videos go up on Nebula ad-free. It's a great way to support the channel. Go to go.nebula/tv/thenandocut and check it out.